The knock at midnight. The night was silent, too silent. The street outside his house was empty, the air heavy with the smell of rain. He sat in his small living room, reading a book he had already read many times, trying to fight the loneliness of the night. It was almost midnight when it happened. A knock. A slow, careful knock on his front door. He froze, the sound cutting through the silence like a blade. Nobody ever came to his house at this hour. He thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe the sound came from somewhere else. But then it came again, louder, clearer, 3 sharp knocks. His chest tightened. Fear and curiosity fought inside him. He stood up, walking slowly to the door, his feet heavy, his mind racing. He thought of burglars, strangers, or maybe some drunk person who had lost their way. But the knocking did not sound careless. It sounded desperate. He reached the door and hesitated. For a moment, he just stood there listening. The rain outside began to fall harder, tapping against the windows, but under the sound of rain he heard it, a voice, soft, trembling. "Please," the voice whispered. "Please open. I'm scared." His hand shook as he reached for the handle. He pulled the door open slowly, the old hinges creaking, and then he saw her. A woman stood there, her clothes damp from the rain, her hair clinging to her pale face. Her eyes were large, glowing faintly in the dark, not like any eyes he had seen before. She looked both beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Her lips trembled as she spoke again. "I'm scared to sleep alone. Please let me stay." For a moment, he could not move. He felt as if his body had forgotten how to breathe. Who was she? And why was she here at his door at midnight? And why did her words sound so heavy, as if more was hidden behind them? The man cleared his throat, trying to speak, but only managed a whisper. Who are you?" She looked around quickly, her eyes darting left and right, as if someone was chasing her. Then she stepped closer, her hand resting lightly on the doorframe. "I cannot tell you now," she said, her voice breaking. "But I beg you, let me in. I cannot be out here." His mind screamed to close the door, to lock it, to walk away. But something deep inside stopped him. There was fear in her eyes, real fear, but there was something else too, a strange energy, a weight he could not explain. He found himself stepping aside, and before he even realized what he was doing, she slipped past him into the house. The door shut with a soft thud behind them. The living room suddenly felt smaller, darker, as she stood there dripping water on the wooden floor. She hugged herself tightly, shivering, though her skin seemed to glow faintly, almost like a light beneath her flesh. It made him uneasy, but he could not look away. "Thank you," she whispered, not meeting his eyes. "You saved me." He frowned, still unsure if he had just made a terrible mistake. "What do you mean, saved you?" he asked, his voice unsteady. "Who are you running from?" She looked up at him then, her glowing eyes reflecting the dim light of the room. "I cannot answer. Not yet," she said. "You wouldn't believe me." Her words struck him like a warning. He wanted to push her for answers, to demand the truth. But something in her expression held him back. Her fear was too real, too raw. So he sighed and handed her a blanket from the sofa. "Sit," he said, his voice firm though his hand shook. "You look like you're freezing." She took the blanket with a trembling hand, wrapping it around her shoulders. Her lips curved in a small smile, though her eyes stayed haunted. "You're kind," she whispered, "more kind than most of your kind." He blinked, confused by her words. "What do you mean by your kind?" he asked. But she only shook her head, staring at the dark window. Her voice dropped low, almost like a prayer. "They will find me if I stay outside." His heart thudded in his chest. "Who will find you?" he asked again, a little louder this time. Her lips parted, but no answer came. Instead, she leaned back on the sofa, closing her eyes for a moment as if she hadn't slept in days. The rain outside grew heavier, and thunder rolled across the sky. The man stood there, trapped between fear and curiosity. His home was no longer his safe place. It had become something else, something strange, something dangerous. And as he looked at her glowing eyes and trembling hands, one truth began to form in his mind. This was not just a woman. This was something more, something he could not yet understand. And as the clock struck midnight, the man realized this night would change his life forever. A stranger in the house. The man closed the curtains tightly, shutting out the storm. The woman sat on the sofa, the blanket wrapped around her like a fragile shield. For a long moment, neither spoke. Only the sound of rain filled the room. He stood near the door, his hand still resting on the handle, as if part of him wanted to open it again and let her go. But another part, a stronger part, kept him still. She looked small there in his living room. Yet something about her presence made the air heavy. It was as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Her eyes wandered around the room, studying the shelves, the clock, the old pictures. But when they landed on him, he felt pinned to the floor. Her gaze was too sharp, too deep, like she could see every hidden thought in his head. "Do you live here alone?" she asked softly, her voice calm, but carrying a strange echo. "Yes," he answered quickly, then regretted it. Why had he admitted that so easily? She nodded slowly, as if the answer mattered more than he knew. He poured water into a glass and placed it on the small table beside her. She looked at it, but did not touch it. Her hand stayed tucked under the blanket, trembling faintly. After a pause, she whispered, "Water tastes different here." He frowned. "Different from what?" he asked. But she only gave a faint smile that did not reach her eyes. Instead, she turned her head toward the window, where raindrops raced down the glass. Her body tensed every time thunder rolled, like she was waiting for something or someone. The man sat down in the chair across from her, keeping distance. He leaned forward, trying to sound calm, though his voice shook. "Who are you running from?" "I told you," she said. "You would not believe me." Her words carried weight, heavier than the storm outside. Something about them made his skin crawl. "Try me," he said, forcing a steadiness into his tone. "You show up at my door at midnight, asking to stay, and you expect me not to ask questions." Her eyes flicked to him, sharp as lightning. "You are braver than most," she said softly. "That is why I chose your door." The sentence made him pause. Chose his door? What did that mean? He wanted to ask, but his voice caught in his throat. She shifted under the blanket, her shoulders tense. Then, leaning slightly forward, she asked, "Do you dream often?" The question was so sudden, so strange, that he almost laughed. But her serious face stopped him. "What does that have to do with anything?" he asked. Her voice dropped lower. "Dreams are doors, and doors can be opened." His chest grew tight. This was nonsense, yet the way she said it made goosebumps rise on his arms. Her trembling hands finally reached for the glass of water. But when she touched it, she flinched, pulling her fingers back quickly. A drop of water clung to her skin and glowed faintly before fading away. He stared, unable to hide his shock. "What was that?" he whispered. She looked away, shame flickering in her eyes. "I should not have come," she said. "It is dangerous for you, for both of us." The storm outside roared louder, wind rattling the windows. Her breathing grew shallow, her hands clutching the blanket tighter. She whispered again, almost to herself, "They are close." The man stood up suddenly, his voice harsh with fear. "Who is close?" he demanded. "Tell me what is happening." Her glowing eyes lifted to his, and for the first time, he saw tears forming. "I cannot tell you everything now," she said, "but you must trust me, or you will not survive this night." The air in the room grew colder. He felt a shiver run down his spine. Was she insane, or was she telling the truth? Every instinct told him to run, yet his legs stayed rooted. He could not ignore the fear in her voice, the truth in her trembling. The old mirror on the wall caught his eye, and his breath caught in his chest. The reflection in the mirror did not match what he saw on the sofa. The woman's figure in the glass was blurred, stretched, as if her form was not fixed. Her glowing eyes in the reflection seemed brighter, alien, almost predatory. He turned to look directly at her. There she sat, small, fragile, human-like. But the mirror told another story, a hidden truth. He swallowed hard, his voice barely a whisper. "What are you?" She followed his gaze to the mirror, and her lips pressed into a thin line. Then she stood, her shadow flickering strangely against the wall. "I told you," she said quietly. "You would not believe me." The thunder shook the house, and at that moment, the lights flickered. Darkness swept across the room for only a heartbeat. When the lamps came back on, she was standing closer to him, her glowing eyes unblinking. Her voice was sharper now, filled with urgency. "You let me in, so now you must decide," she said. "Will you help me, or will you push me back into the storm?" His mouth went dry, his thoughts tangled in fear and curiosity. Before he could answer, the window rattled, a strange shadow passing by outside. She whispered one word that froze him in place. "They found me." The secret revealed. The man's heart pounded as the storm outside crashed against the windows. The stranger's whisper echoed in his ears. "They found me." He stood frozen near the chair, staring at her glowing eyes, unsure if he was trapped in a nightmare or still awake. For a long moment, neither moved. The air felt heavy, like the house itself was holding its breath. Then she turned away from the window and looked straight at him, her voice trembling but urgent. "You deserve to know," she said, "because now it involves you too." He swallowed hard, his throat dry. "What are you talking about?" he demanded. "Who is out there? Who's looking for you?" Her gaze lowered to the floor, and her voice softened. "You saw it," she whispered. "In the mirror. You know I'm not what I seem." His stomach twisted. The image in the mirror flashed in his mind again. Her distorted figure, her two bright eyes. A shiver crawled down his spine. "You're not human, are you?" he said quietly. Silence filled the room, broken only by thunder rolling outside. Finally, she nodded, slow and sad. "No," she said, "not human, not from this world." The words struck him like a blow. He almost laughed, almost told her she was insane, but something in her tone, something in her eyes, stopped him. Her fear was too real, too raw, and deep down, he already knew she was telling the truth. "I should not be here," she continued, her voice cracking. "But I had no choice. I escaped, and your world was the closest, the safest place I could find." He shook his head, unable to take it in. "Escape from where?" he asked. Her lips trembled. "From them," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "Hunters' shadows that feed on dreams. They can follow across the dark, across stars. They will not stop until they find me." The man's chest grew tight. Dreams, hunters across stars. It sounded impossible, yet the way she spoke made his skin prickle with dread. He wanted to deny it, to push her out and lock the door, but his legs refused to move. Her hands slipped out from under the blanket, pale and trembling. She held them out toward him, and faint light pulsed under her skin, like veins glowing with fire. "This is why they hunt me," she said, her voice urgent, "because I carry something they want, something they must never have." The light in her hands grew brighter, filling the room with an eerie glow. He stumbled back, his eyes wide. What is that?" he stammered. Her expression turned grim. "It is power, but not meant for war. It was meant to heal, to protect, but in their hands it will destroy." The storm howled louder, rattling the walls. The man felt trapped between terror and awe. Part of him wanted to run, but another part, stronger than fear, kept him standing there. He whispered, "Why me? Why my house?" Her glowing eyes softened. "Because humans are stronger than they know," she said. "I needed someone who could hold their ground, someone who would not run at the first knock on the door." Her lips curved in a faint, sad smile. "And you opened it." His chest tightened. He had not thought of himself as brave. He had only acted on instinct. But now her words made him feel both proud and terrified. Before he could reply, the lights in the house flickered again. The woman's expression hardened, fear flashing across her face. "They are close," she whispered. "They can sense the energy." He ran to the window and pulled back the curtain slightly. The rain blurred his view, but for a brief second he saw something move. A tall shadow sliding past the streetlight, its shape bending unnaturally against the storm. He gasped and shut the curtain, his body shaking. "There's something out there," he muttered. She nodded, her voice firm now. "They have crossed into your world, and they will not stop." The room seemed to shrink around him. His safe, ordinary home no longer felt like his own. He turned back to her, his voice shaking. "What do we do?" Her glowing hands dimmed as she pulled them close to her chest. "We stay hidden for now," she said. "But if they enter, we fight together." The man almost laughed at the word fight. He was no soldier, no hero, just an ordinary person living in an ordinary house. But the way she looked at him, steady, certain, made him believe he had no choice. A crash outside made them both jump. Something heavy struck the porch, and the sound of slow, dragging steps moved toward the door. The air grew colder, and the lights in the room flickered again. The woman stood, the blanket falling from her shoulders, her glowing eyes bright with defiance. "They are here," she whispered. Her hands pulsed with light once more, filling the room with an otherworldly glow. The man's breath caught as shadows danced under the doorframe. A voice, low and distorted, hissed from outside. "You cannot hide from us." The woman stepped closer to him, her voice steady but urgent. "This is only the beginning," she said. "If you stand with me, you may survive. If not, you will be taken like the others." The man's knees shook, his mind screaming for him to run, but his body stayed still. He looked at her glowing eyes, her trembling yet unyielding figure, and deep inside something shifted. He realized his life had already changed the moment he opened the door. Now, there was no turning back. The knocking began again, louder this time, shaking the walls. The woman raised her glowing hands, ready to defend, and the man whispered to himself, though his heart raced with fear, "Whatever you are, I will not let them take you." The hunter arrives. The door shook under the weight of the pounding. Each knock echoed through the house like thunder, rattling the pictures on the walls. The man pressed his back against the chair, his breath sharp and uneven. The woman stood tall in the center of the room, her glowing hands raised, her eyes fixed on the trembling door. Outside, the storm roared, but beneath the sound of rain and wind, there was something else. A low hum, metallic, unnatural, crawling under the skin like static. It was the sound of something alive, but not human. The man's voice cracked as he whispered, "What is it?" The woman's lips pressed tight, her voice low but certain. "A hunter," she said, "one of many." The words sent a cold shiver down his spine. Hunter. The way she said it carried centuries of fear, as if the very word itself was poison. He wanted to believe it was only a story, some trick of his mind, but the heavy knocks against his door told him it was real. The pounding stopped suddenly. Silence stretched across the room, so deep it made the man's heart hammer even louder. He dared to hope that maybe it had gone, maybe it had walked away, but then, from the other side of the door, came a sound that froze the blood in his veins. Breathing. Slow, mechanical, like air being pulled through broken metal. The hunter was not gone. It was waiting, listening. The woman stepped closer to him, her glow lighting her sharp features. "You must not look into its eyes," she whispered. "If you do, it will see your dreams, it will take them, and you will never wake again." His throat tightened. He shook his head in disbelief. "This isn't real," he muttered. "This can't be real." But the shadows under the door moved, stretching long and unnatural across the floor. And he knew, whether he believed or not, it was here. The handle of the door rattled slowly, like invisible fingers were testing it. The man grabbed the nearest thing he could find, a lamp from the table. His hands trembled as he held it like a weapon, though he knew it was useless. The woman looked at him, her glowing eyes fierce. "Courage is the only weapon they fear," she said. "Stand with me, and you may live." Before he could answer, the door groaned. The wood bent inward, not breaking but warping, as if invisible hands were pressing against it. The man's chest tightened. It was not trying to enter like a person. It was pushing through like smoke, forcing itself through cracks. The woman raised her hands high, light spilling across the room like fire. The walls shook, the storm howled, and then the door burst open. What stood there was no man. It was tall, its body wrapped in shifting black shapes that looked more like shadows than flesh. Its head bent low, a mask of metal and bone covering its face. Its eyes glowed, faintly red, piercing and unnatural. And with every step it took into the house, the air grew colder. The man felt his knees weaken, but the woman's voice cut through the fear, sharp and steady. "Do not look at its eyes," she reminded him. "Do not give it your fear." The hunter's breathing filled the room, heavy and metallic. It lifted a hand, long fingers sharp as blades, the air humming with energy as it reached toward them. The woman threw her glowing hands forward, light erupting like a shield between them and the creature. The air cracked. A sharp noise like glass breaking filled the room. The hunter stopped, its head tilting to the side, studying them. It spoke then, its voice low and distorted, like 1,000 whispers layered into one. "You cannot hide," it hissed. "She is ours." The man's blood turned to ice. It was speaking in his language, but the sound was wrong, twisted. The woman stood firm, her voice steady. "You will not take me," she said, her glow burning brighter. "You will not take him either." The hunter stepped closer, its shadow stretching across the floor, wrapping around the man's feet like chains. He gasped, feeling his legs grow heavy, his body freezing. The woman shouted, "Fight it, do not give in." He closed his eyes, his hands tightening around the useless lamp. His breath came in sharp gasps, his mind screaming that he was only human, powerless against this thing. But then, somewhere inside, a spark of defiance burned. He shouted, his voice raw, "Get out." For a moment, the shadow around his feet recoiled. The hunter tilted its head again, as if surprised. The woman's glow flared brighter, pushing the shadows back. She turned to him, her voice urgent. "Good. Do not stop. Keep resisting. It cannot take what you do not surrender." The hunter let out a distorted hiss, the walls shaking under the force of it. Its red eyes burned brighter, its body bending forward as if it would pounce. The woman raised her arms, light spilling like fire across the floor, meeting the hunter's darkness in the center of the room. The clash filled the air with a sound like screaming metal. The man stood frozen, caught between terror and awe. The light and shadow battled in front of him, his home torn between two forces he could not begin to understand. The hunter hissed again, louder this time, its shadow pressing hard against the glow. The woman strained, her body trembling, her voice breaking as she shouted, "I cannot hold it alone. You must choose." The man's chest heaved, sweat dripping down his face. He did not know what power he had or what choice she meant, but the truth was clear. If he did nothing, both of them would be lost. His heart pounded, his voice shaking but loud. "What do I do?" he shouted. The woman turned, her glowing eyes fierce. "Stand with me," she said, "stand or fall." The hunter roared, shadows rising like a wave. And as the man tightened his grip on the lamp, forcing himself to move toward her, he realized there was no going back. The fight had begun, and his ordinary life was already gone. The fight for survival. The hunter's roar shook the walls, a sound so deep it seemed to crawl inside the man's bones. Shadows rose like black smoke, swirling across the floor, reaching for the woman and the man. Her glow flared brighter, pushing back, but the clash made the lights in the house explode, leaving only her burning hands to cut through the darkness. The man's breath came fast, his grip tight on the lamp in his hand. The object felt small, useless, against the nightmare in front of him. But when the hunter's shadow curled around his feet again, pulling at his body, he swung the lamp down with all his strength. The glass shattered, sparks flying. The shadow recoiled with a hiss. The woman shouted, "Good, do not let it touch you." Her voice was strained, her body trembling as she held the glowing shield. The hunter tilted its head, red eyes glowing brighter, studying him. Then it spoke, its voice layered and cold. "You are weak, human, you cannot fight us." The man's chest heaved, fear pressed against him, but he shouted back, "Then you don't know me?" Something shifted inside him as he said it, a spark of defiance stronger than his fear. The hunter moved fast, a blur of shadow and claws. The woman raised her hands, light crashing into darkness, filling the room with a sound like thunder. The walls cracked, the floor shook, furniture splintered under the force. The man ducked as the blast threw shards of wood across the room. The creature roared, its voice rattling the glass in the windows. It slashed with its long claws, cutting through the glow, breaking pieces of her shield. The woman cried out, stumbling back, her glow flickering. The hunter pressed forward, its shadows tightening. The man's chest tightened. She couldn't hold it alone. Without thinking, he grabbed a broken chair leg from the floor. The wood felt heavy in his hands. He charged forward, his body trembling but moving anyway. He swung at the shadowy figure, the wood connecting with a sound like striking stone. The hunter staggered, only slightly, but enough to make it turn its glowing eyes toward him. The woman shouted, "Do not look into them." He squeezed his eyes shut, his heart racing, swinging blindly again. The hunter hissed, shadows lashing around him, wrapping his arm like chains. He screamed, dropping the wood, feeling the cold burn into his skin. The woman screamed too, pushing her glow harder, blasting the shadows away from him. "Stay close to me," she yelled. "Do not let it separate us." The hunter roared, its body twisting, filling the room with black smoke that swallowed everything. The man coughed, blind in the dark, the only light coming from the woman's hands. He stumbled, reaching out until he felt her arm, her skin warm and trembling. She pulled him close, her glow wrapping around them both like a shield. The hunter struck again, its claws slamming into the glow, cracks spreading through the light like broken glass. The woman gasped, her knees buckling. The man held her up, his voice desperate. "You can't hold it. You're breaking." Her eyes burned with fire. "Not if you help me," she said. "You must give me your strength." He stared at her, lost. "Ow!" he shouted over the roar. She grabbed his hand, pressing it against her glowing skin. "Do not fear," she whispered. "Just stand with me, believe, and it will be enough." Her light flared, and for a moment he felt something rush through him. It was warmth, fire, and lightning all at once, coursing through his veins. The hunter reeled back, its shadows slashed apart by the sudden surge of glow. The man cried out, his body shaking, but he did not let go. Together, their light grew brighter, filling every corner of the house. The hunter screamed, its voice like 1,000 broken radios at once. Its body twisted, burning at the edges where the light touched. But it did not fall. It lunged, breaking through the light, knocking them both to the floor. The man rolled aside, his shoulder slamming into the wall, pain shooting through him. The woman skidded across the floor, her glow flickering weakly now. The hunter towered above them, its claws raised for the final strike. The man's body screamed with exhaustion, but his heart screamed louder. He forced himself to his feet, grabbing the broken chair leg again. He ran, shouting with all his breath. The hunter swung its claw, but he ducked low and drove the wood deep into its shadowy chest. For a moment, silence. Then the creature let out a roar so loud it shook the ground. The shadows around its body thrashed, cracking, burning under the glow that now poured from the wound. The woman lifted her hands, her last strength pushing the glow deeper into the wound. "Now," she shouted, "finish it." The man pushed with all his strength, the wood glowing in his hands as if alive. The hunter screamed again, its red eyes flickering, its body breaking apart like smoke under fire. And then it exploded into a cloud of black ash, vanishing into the storm. The man collapsed to his knees, his chest heaving, sweat dripping down his face. The woman fell beside him, her glow fading, her hands trembling. For a long moment, neither spoke. Only the sound of rain filled the broken house. Finally, the man whispered, his voice raw, "Is it over?" The woman shook her head slowly, her glowing eyes dim but steady. "No," she said, "that was only one." The man's stomach twisted. "One," he repeated. She nodded, her voice heavy with sorrow. "There are more, many more." The house groaned around them, broken furniture scattered, shadows lingering at the edges like scars. The man realized his world would never be the same. And as he looked at the woman beside him, her pale face lit by the faint glow still burning under her skin, he knew one truth. The fight had only begun. The choice. The house smelled of smoke and rain. Shadows clung to the broken corners of the room, whispering faintly as if the hunter's presence still lingered. The man sat on the floor, his chest rising and falling with every rough breath, his body aching from the fight. Across from him, the woman lay weak, her glow dim but still alive. For a long moment, neither spoke. The storm outside had calmed, but inside the house, silence was heavier than thunder. The man finally whispered, We survived." The woman's glowing eyes turned toward him, soft but sorrowful. "No," she said gently, "we only delayed what is coming." Her words stabbed at him harder than any claw. He wanted to believe it was over, that the nightmare had ended when the creature dissolved into smoke. But her trembling hands told him otherwise. The fight had only begun. He moved closer, helping her sit up, the blanket from earlier slipping around her shoulders again. "You can't stay here," he said, his voice rough. "If more of them are coming, this house won't hold, I won't hold." Her lips pressed into a thin line, and her glowing eyes looked down at the broken floor. "I know," she said quietly, "and yet I do not want to leave." The man froze, staring at her pale face. "Why?" he asked, his voice sharp. "If they are hunting you, if they can tear through walls and shadows, then why stay?" She looked at him then, her eyes shining not with glow, but with something more fragile, sorrow. "Because with you," she whispered, "I felt safe, even for a moment." The words struck him, leaving his mind blank. Safe? How could she feel safe here, with him, an ordinary man who had nearly collapsed from fear? But he remembered her words before the fight. Courage is the only weapon they fear. He had stood with her, even when everything inside him screamed to run. Maybe that was why she chose his door. His throat tightened. "You can't risk yourself just to feel safe," he said, his voice trembling. "You'll bring them back, and next time, maybe we won't survive." The woman's fingers brushed the broken wood near her, her hands glowing faintly again. "There is another path," she said softly, "but it is not one you can take lightly." He frowned. "What do you mean?" Her glowing eyes lifted to his, steady and unblinking. "I can return," she said, "to my world, to the place I escaped from. But if I go alone, I may not survive. They will find me before I reach the gate. They will tear me apart before I can cross." The man's chest tightened. He didn't like where this was going. "And if you don't go back?" he asked. Her voice lowered, heavy with sorrow. "Then I will stay," she said, "but staying means they will keep coming, more hunters, more nights like this, and they will not stop until you're gone too." The weight of her words crashed over him. If she left, she might die. If she stayed, he might die. There was no safe answer, no clean choice. His voice cracked. "Then what am I supposed to do?" She leaned forward, her hands trembling as they reached for his. "You must decide," she whispered. "If you send me away, you return to your life, broken but safe. But if you stand with me, if you walk through the gate at my side, you leave this world behind. You leave everything you know, and you step into a war that is not yours." The man's heart pounded. Her glowing hands were warm against his skin, the light seeping into his veins. He could feel her fear, her exhaustion, but also her hope. Hope that he might not turn her away. He closed his eyes, his thoughts crashing against each other. Could he leave his life, his house, his world behind? Could he step into the unknown, into her war? But could he also let her go, knowing she might never make it back, knowing she might die alone on the other side? The silence stretched, only the faint drip of rain from the ceiling filling the air. Finally, he opened his eyes, staring into her glowing ones, and he realized the truth. His life had already changed the moment he opened the door. There was no going back, not really. His voice shook, but his words were steady. Then I won't let you go alone. Her eyes widened, tears glimmering faintly. If you would come with me, she whispered. He nodded, his chest heavy but firm. I don't care if it's not my war. I don't care if I don't belong. You knocked on my door, and I answered, I'll see this through with you. Her lips trembled, then curved into the faintest smile. You do not know what you are agreeing to, she said softly, but thank you. She leaned back, closing her eyes briefly, her glow brightening with new strength. There is a gate, she whispered, a path hidden between your world and mine. We must reach it before the others find us, before the hunters grow too many. The man exhaled, looking at the broken door, the shattered furniture, the storm still dripping outside. His house was no longer his home. It was just a ruin of the life he once lived. He turned back to her, his voice firm. Then let's go. She opened her eyes, her glow steady now. There is no turning back, she reminded him. I know, he said, and though fear gnawed at him, something deeper, stronger, burned in his chest. A choice had been made, and it was his to carry. A new beginning. The night was fading, the storm outside finally breaking into silence. The ruined house stood like a hollow shell, broken furniture scattered, the walls scarred with shadow and light. The man stood near the doorway, staring out into the wet, empty street, his chest heavy with the choice he had made. Beside him, the woman's glow flickered softly, brighter now, steadier, as if his decision had given her strength. This world is no longer safe for you, she said gently, her voice carrying both sorrow and relief. He nodded slowly, his throat tight, I know. His gaze lingered on the street where he had lived for years, the neighbors' houses, the quiet trees swaying in the wind. It was the only life he had ever known, and yet it already felt distant, like a dream fading with the dawn. She stepped closer, her glowing hand reaching for his. When you cross with me, there is no return, she whispered. Are you ready for that? His heart pounded, his fear rising again, but he gripped her hand firmly. I wasn't ready for any of this, he said, but I'm not letting you walk into it alone. Her lips curved into a faint smile, and for the first time, her eyes carried more hope than fear. Then follow me, she said. They walked together through the broken house, stepping past shattered wood and scattered glass. At the center of the living room, where the hunter's shadow had burned deepest into the floor, she stopped. She raised her glowing hands, and light spread slowly, forming a circle of shifting patterns. The air hummed, the ground trembled softly, and the man felt his skin prickle with electricity. A doorway began to form, not of wood or stone, but of light and shadow, twisting together like living threads. The glow spread higher, shaping an arch that seemed too tall for the room, stretching beyond what his eyes could follow. Through it, he saw nothing at first, only a shifting darkness like storm clouds. But then, faint glimmers of stars appeared, sharp and bright, as if the universe itself was waiting on the other side. The man's breath caught, awe and fear mixing in his chest. This is real, he whispered. The woman squeezed his hand gently, her glowing face tilted toward him. Everything you feared was real, she said. So everything you hoped for could be real too. The arch pulsed, light spilling across the floor, the air pulling them forward like a tide. The man's legs shook, but he did not step back. His old life lay behind him, small and fragile. But in front of him stretched something vast, unknown, terrifying, and beautiful. She stepped forward first, her form shimmering as she passed through the glow. For a moment, her body seemed to dissolve into light, then reformed on the other side, waiting for him. Her glowing eyes locked onto his, steady and sure. Come, she called, her voice carrying through the hum. He took one last look behind him, at the ruined house, at the quiet street outside, at the world he once thought was safe. And then he stepped into the arch. The world around him shifted. For a heartbeat, there was only light, endless and blinding, a rush of warmth and cold at the same time. His chest tightened, his mind spinning, but then it cleared, and when his feet touched the ground again, he gasped. The sky above was not his sky. It stretched wide with colors he had never seen, hues of violet and gold rippling like living fire. 2 moons hung above the horizon, glowing pale against a sea of stars, so close he felt he could reach them. The air was sharp but sweet, carrying scents of metal and flowers, strange yet comforting. He looked around, his breath stolen by the sight. Towers rose in the distance, not built of stone or steel but grown, their surfaces shimmering with veins of light. The ground beneath his feet pulsed faintly, as if alive. Strange trees with glowing leaves bent gently in a breeze that hummed with music. Everywhere he looked, the world shimmered with a beauty that was not meant for Earth. The woman stepped beside him, her pale face lit by the twin moons, her glowing eyes soft as she watched his wonder. "Welcome," she whispered, "to my world, to our world." His chest swelled, fear still clinging to him, but stronger than the fear. He whispered back, It's beautiful." Her smile was small but true. "This beauty hides danger," she said. "The hunters are not the only ones here. This place is full of war and secrets, and once you walk further, you will see the cost of standing with me." He turned to her, gripping her hand tightly. "I already paid the cost when I opened the door," he said, his voice firm. "Now I walk forward." Her eyes glimmered with tears, but she did not look away. Together, they stood under the alien sky, 2 figures small against the vast world waiting for them. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with shadows and hunters that would not stop. But for the first time, the man felt something stronger than fear. He felt purpose. The woman raised her hand, pointing toward the glowing towers in the distance. "That is where we must go," she said softly. "That is where the gatekeepers are, and where the war will follow us." The man nodded, his body trembling but steady. "Then let's not waste time," he said, and with that, they stepped forward together, their silhouettes framed by the strange, glowing light of a world beyond imagination. Behind them, Earth was gone, its streets and storms fading like a memory. Ahead of them lay a war, a destiny, and a story that had only just begun.